Hey, Falcons NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins with Tomlin. Chris Smitherman back with us behind the scenes, fresh off of his move. I'm Dave Holcomb. We're going to talk some Pro Football Focus lists today. They have kind of released one list every couple days or so, ranking the top head coaches, top running backs, top wide receivers. I think those are the three they have out right now. So we're going to discuss where the Falcons are on those lists. Should they be rated higher, lower, whatnot. Want to hear feedback from our listeners, of course, on your reaction to where the Falcons are ranked. And then we'll maybe even dive into some other teams on the list as well.
Yeah, it sounds great. The Falcons just aren't going to get a lot of love right now. Not until, a couple of weeks into the season, we see where the team actually is. So I'm not surprised that Pro Football Focus doesn't have a whole lot in store for the Falcons this season.
Yeah, I was debating whether even to say if fans think they should be ranked lower because they're pretty low already on the lists. So I'm assuming that our listener base is not going to say, yeah, the Falcons should be lower on any of these lists. But that's what we're going to spend, I think, most of today on. If there's any other topics that you would like to discuss, please let us know, and we can get to them today. If you're listening live, send us a comment on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and of course, follow us after if you're listening on replay, and send us a message on Twitter at TJ Pollen, at DM Holcomb. Don't forget to like, subscribe. The Braves are on a 9-game winning streak, so things are heating up for the Braves, and lots of Braves and other Georgia sports coverage on Atlanta Sports Unlimited. So give us a follow on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and like us on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. We cover it all here.
And, of course, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks, as it always is. Check out the app, download it in your app store. Use that promo code, thank you, Chris, ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So free money. If you want to put down $20, you get $20. If you're feeling ambitious, put down $100, get $100 with the promo code ASU. You get free money and you support us as well.
Absolutely. And there's still football to make prop picks on. You still have the USFL. So if you want to get involved in that, apparently the CFL is starting. So if anybody has CFL interests, you can go into that and make prop picks. Still got NBA playoffs, still got Stanley Cup playoffs. There are plenty of choices on Prize Picks.
So have you been watching any of the USFL, but not Canadian football? That's what I gather from the way you read that promo.
No, I actually haven't had a chance to watch much of it right now. So I haven't had a chance to keep up with it. Was going to, but I've been very busy at work. For people who realize that I don't do this as a job. So
well, none of us do.
Right.
Not yet, anyway.
Exactly. But hey, support Prize Picks, support the show. You never know. This might turn into something. We can go national.
That would be great.
We'll take it national. We'll take the Falcons national. We'll take the NFL national, and we will do all that stuff. And we'll take all you fans with us, and we'll have a blast. So just keep supporting the show.
Absolutely. Every Saturday at noon Eastern time, and Saturday mornings for everywhere else, particularly Chicago, where Tom is.
Yep. As I always say on Twitter, come for the analysis, stay for the fun. So we have plenty of fun here.
Well, today we're going to, as far as the analysis go, we're going to analyze someone else's analysis. That's Pro Football Focus. And the three rankings that I mentioned off the top of the show that they have out, they have the head coach, which only has 26 head coaches on the list. They excluded all head coaches in their first year with their new team. think the article says they excluded all first-year head coaches, but that's not really true because Doug Peterson and Josh McDaniels technically not first-year head coaches. It's first-year head coaches with their new team.
Right, but that you do have a track record with them.
Yeah, but they don't use that previous track record to rank those coaches. It's just the 26 coaches that are have spent at least one season with their current team. And then they have the running back list out and the wide receiver list, I think, came out 2 days ago. The wide receiver list came out. So where do you want to start first? Which list do you want to dive into?
I'm telling you, we can take any one of them, really. There's some meat on the bones on all of these. Let's look at the coach list first. Let's go over there.
Sure. Okay. So what I found interesting right at the top was there were 3 Pantera saying that you are a little fuzzy, Tom. I think your picture.
Yeah, I know. I can't help it. I have glare and I can't do anything with it. I try, but I'm going to be a little fuzzy. That there's just nothing I can do. I can try and work on the glare this week and see if I can't get things a little bit better.
Thanks for letting us know, Pantera. Yeah, we'll try and improve that for Tom in future weeks. But what I found interesting right at the top of the coaches list, there were 3 elite coaches, or like they call Hall of Fame coaches, which I think there probably are more than 3 coaches currently coaching in the NFL. They're going to make the Hall of Fame, but for the purpose of this list, there's 3. And the top 3 were, of course, Bill Belichick, and then
of course
Andy Reid and John Harbaugh were in the same tier with Bill Belichick. And then you had the next group, which was called Good Coaches, which had quite a few, 10.
And who leads off that list of good coaches? That really puzzles me.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name.
The name that leads off the list of good coaches really puzzles me.
Me too. Yes. We'll dive into that. Let's shelve that for now. But yes, I did not agree with that ranking. The second tier, we got good coaches with 10 guys are in there. So you got 13 good or Hall of Fame coaches, according to Pro Football Focus. And then the next tier is average coaches.
Yep.
And that was 7 names. Actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke at the top. They did rank Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson is on.
Yeah, he's in there.
Well, he's a first-year head coach. I thought they were excluding all first-year head coaches.
Nope. That looks like first-year head coaches, period, as far as the first time these guys have taken over a team. So, in other words, you're not going to get the Saints in there. Because
what confused me though, that Josh McDaniels is not on the list, and he's not a first-year head coach. But I think the reason why he's not is they're using data from 2011 to 2021 for this list, and McDaniels was not a head coach during that time. That's probably why he's not on this list. I'm not missing him, right? He's not on the list.
I thought I saw Josh McDaniels' name. Oh, Dennis Allen is on this list, which is surprising considering he's never been a head coach before. It's interesting how I don't know what criteria they used for this list. This is just a little odd, but I don't see Josh.
I
don't see him on there.
It says this ranking does not consider results from prior to 2011 and does not include first-time head coaches, since success as a coordinator does not necessarily translate to success as a head coach. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the next sentence says, thus, Josh McDaniels, Brian Dable, Matt Eberflus, Nathaniel Hackett, Mike McDaniel, and Kevin O'Connell are not included. So Doug Peterson and Dennis Allen are, though, because I guess they have been head coaches during that 2001 and later time frame.
Yeah,
where
Dennis Allen, not a long-time head coach, but yeah, he did.
McDaniels was head coach before 2001.
Yeah.
So I guess that's they could have made it a little bit clearer. Sorry.
Yeah, they could have, but
yeah, Wallace, you're right. I don't remember exactly the years though. When was Dennis Allen the coach of the Raiders?
Actually, I was just looking it up. 2012 through 2014. He was let go after the first 4 games of 2014.
Okay, so if you just to clarify, any coach that has at least 1 year of head coaching experience since 2011 is on this list. There's 26 current head coaches that meet that criteria.
Right.
And they've got they've gotten them broken down into 4 tiers. And Arthur Smith is at the very bottom of tier number 3.
Yes, he is.
So he was above the room for improvement, which is the very bottom tier, but he's the very last ranked head coach in the average tier, number 20th overall, 20 out of 26. 20 out of 32 wouldn't be bad, but 20 out of 26 is like more closer to the bottom.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Overall they weren't that impressed with Arthur Smith. He didn't have a great first season. I would put him in the room for improvement, actually. He did have a rough first season. He had a rough first season running his offense with what he had on the field, what he took over with the Falcons. But and some of the problems were out of his control as far as Calvin Ridley. Some of the offensive line did not perform up to standard. Really did not get a good season out of McGarry or Mayfield, and that Mayfield got better as it went along, but that kind of hurt Smith. But the fact that he never really, I don't know, it never really seemed to me to put his stamp on this team.
And I think we got to talk more about, again, how this list was constructed, that it's supposed to take a look at how coaches perform with what they have, yes, but how they perform with what they have versus how they would do if they were given average players. And I think the flaw that this list might have is they are looking at both how your offense and defense performs under your tenure. And sure, Arthur Smith is the head coach. He's responsible for everything. But he's not a defensive coach. And I don't know how in one season you want him, an offensive mind, to have a much better defense than what Dan Quinn was doing. And he's a defensive mind. And he couldn't figure out how to have a good defense with the players that he was given. So, I mean, how does Arthur Smith get judged based on what the Falcons defense does when he's an offensive coach?
Well, basically you get judged on the fact that you're supposed to be in charge of both units. So that's what they're looking at. They're not taking into consideration that Smith, its first year, he's basically taken over this essentially the same defense that Dan Quinn failed with.
Right.
So they're not taking that into consideration.
And I get that,
they're not looking at the coordinators.
When you're looking at
there's nothing to do with the coordinators. This is what they feel the head coach is getting out of his coordinators and getting out of his units.
I understand that. I get that. But what I'm arguing is coordinators have a huge impact on your team. And Arthur Smith gets to hire whoever he wants as defensive coordinator. So the coordinator should be doing what he wants. But again, I think Dean Pease is a good coordinator. There's only so much he can do with the below average players, I would say, the Falcons had on defense last year. So, if you give in average players, they probably would have been better.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. I agree with you. But as I say, and this is why Pro Football Focus just drives me nuts sometimes, because you got a question about how they do some of their rankings and what they include on some of their rankings, which is kind of causing this little, us to have this, this discussion now, is the fact that they're not really clear, because normally, you got to take the coordinators into account. They're the ones who are taking over, each side of the ball. Technically, Smith is the offensive coordinator, but that's
sure. Yeah. And if you want to criticize Smith for the Falcons being a below average offensive unit, I don't think that's really fair either, based on what he had on the offensive line, based on what they had at wide receiver, even at running back. But if you want to criticize him for not getting more out of the offense, fine. I think that's fair game. But if you look at the roster and the GM and the salary cap situation for the team, and those weren't factors in this list. I get it, but that, to me, those are things that should be considered when you're looking at how much a coach gets out of the situation he's in, which is basically what this list is trying to say.
Yeah. I look at the fact that he also had a future Hall of Famer as his quarterback and really did not get as much out of him as he should have.
So you don't think you think their offense should have been better last year?
Yes, I think their offense should have been better.
Okay.
But as I say, I know they had the wide receiver problems. They lost Julio Jones, who really had no impact on the Titans offense. Russell Gage did show better. Zacchaeus is not, across, he's not going to be a guy who's going to cut across the field and take contact. And, he's your deep threat, and he was kind of misused. Pitts really didn't have anybody to take the pressure off of him. Ridley got suspended. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. But it's hard to say when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback that, the offense didn't perform as well as they should have.
And I think that's the other thing that maybe bothers me about this list is the NFL is so quarterback driven that
yes, it is.
You can't really win without a quarterback. And the coaches that have a quarterback seem to be hurt on this list for the most part. Maybe not Andy Reid. John Harbaugh is up there. And obviously Belichick isn't hurt by the fact that he coached Tom Brady all those years. But one name that came to mind is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is ranked 13th on this list.
Yeah.
And they basically the reason why they put him so low is they said that he should have gotten more out of Ben Roethlisberger at the end of his career. No. And, I mean, maybe not the tail end of his career where Ben couldn't really throw much very far last year and at the end of 2020. But I think they're talking about maybe 14, 15, 16, 17 when they were going to the playoffs and only once won playoff games in any of those seasons. I guess twice. They won a playoff game in 2015 too. But I don't see why Tomlin is hurt by the fact that he had such talent on his offense and they performed well. And he's hurt because, if they had average players on offense, he wouldn't do that well coaching offense. It seems to be the argument against Mike Tomlin and why he's ranked lower outside the top 10, which I think
the fact that Tomlin wins every year.
Shouldn't Tomlin?
No matter who he has on his roster, he wins every year.
I know.
So, and doesn't that say that if Tomlin had a bunch of average players on his roster, he would still get the most out of them?
I think you could argue that the last at least year and a half, I think Roethlisberger played pretty well at the beginning of 2020, but did not finish the season well in 2020.
No.
He was injured all of 2019. So you could really argue for the last 3 seasons, the Steelers have had average or below average play at quarterback.
Yeah.
And they went 8-8 or better and made the playoffs twice.
Right.
Isn't that Mike Tomlin?
Yeah, that is. That's why it always drive me crazy to see everybody ranking Mike Tomlin so low as they do in their evaluations.
You know, he's behind a brand.
You know, if Pittsburgh ever wants to get rid of him, we'll take him here in Chicago any day. You know, I'm sure Falcons fans would enjoy having Tomlin down in Atlanta. The guy wins. That's all he does.
I absolutely am not giving him up as a Steeler fan. I would never. I love Mike Tomlin. I know a lot of other Steeler fans are just spoiled and take for granted what Tomlin has done. But this list is done by a non-Steeler person, I believe. So I was expecting Tomlin to get much more respect than 13th overall. But the write-up for Tomlin does say that if they were considering, managing players off the field, Tomlin would be higher. So I guess, they're admitting that Tomlin does well at managing personalities, but that was another factor not considered on this list, which is a huge factor.
That goes with coaching. That's part of coaching.
Right.
Just, managing the personalities. If you can't manage the personalities, it doesn't matter how your football IQ is on the field. You're still going to have problems because you've got a lot of guys pulling in different directions.
Yeah, so I didn't understand, Tomlin getting hurt by having good offenses the last few, not the last couple of years, but before that. Sean McVay is kind of low as well. He's number 11.
Yes, he is.
I can't see why he should be outside the top 10. And is he hurt because he's coached some good quarterbacks? But you look at Jared Goff and what Jared Goff is now versus what he was under Sean McVay a few years ago. Isn't that and what he did in one season with Matthew Stafford and what Stafford was in Detroit? Isn't that a clear indication that Sean McVay is a great offensive mind?
Well, I think so, because he took a quarterback who hadn't won a playoff game before, rarely been to the playoffs, despite, and there was talent on that Lions offense, but not a lot of it, and kind of brought him in and molded him, and Stafford blossomed with that Ram system. Of course, when you have Cooper Kupp as one of your wide receivers, it's, you're starting the game, you got an advantage right there. But, McVay has a lot of great players. They're saying that if it weren't for the great players, he wouldn't be the coach that he is today.
I don't know. I remember when Jeff Fisher was coaching those great players and what they were.
Yeah,
they didn't have all those. They didn't have all the players they have now with Jeff Fisher, but they had Aaron Donald. They had Jared Goff. That Jeff Fisher refused to play for 10 weeks to start his rookie season. So,
So basically, that's what Pro Football Focus is saying. Is he's had outstanding players, he's had Pro Bowl players, put him with an average roster. And this is about what you're going to get, which I don't agree with, but that's the problem with. And Wallace Smith just made a great count. That's any coach if they don't have great players.
That's what I was going to say the same thing Wallace just said, that nobody wins without talent in the NFL.
Right. Exactly. Bill Belichick, we've seen him the last couple of years of struggle because, and you could say Belichick, 11.7 and 5.3 losses record with an average roster. Well, didn't he have an average roster a couple of seasons ago and thoroughly got trashed around the league? He had a bad, terrible season. So,
it wasn't terrible. Would they have 7 wins?
It wasn't
11.
Wasn't a Belichick type season.
No. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So, it wasn't one of those Belichick quality seasons. He was only 10-7 last year. He was 7-9 the year before. So 7-9 after losing Brady. So would he have that good of a record with just an average roster? I don't know. Maybe they're overranking Belichick. I'm not saying that Belichick isn't one of the greatest coaches. He's in my top 10 of all time, but I'm just saying compared their ranking system.
If you use their ranking system, then I don't think Belichick should be a shoe-in number one.
Right.
If you're basing it on average roster and average quarterback play, what this coach would get, I mean, Belichick with average quarterback play the last 2 years, it has been a sizable downgrade from when Tom Brady was playing for him.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. You just said it a lot better.
Yeah. Yes. I want to address a Pantera comment back to Mike Tomlin. You have to admit Mike has had talent galore teams, but no rings in the last 10 years. I get that, Pantera. I absolutely would love the Steelers win more championships, of course. But winning championships is hard. And that can't be the only measure of success. And winning seasons, playoff appearances, division titles, Mike Tomlin has a lot of those. And I think if you look back, there aren't a lot of seasons where I would say, yeah, the Steelers should have gone farther this year. Or that is a year that they left something on the table. There's not that many of those seasons. There's some. The loss to Jacksonville in the playoffs at home a few years ago really hurt. That was a season where they should have gone farther. Losing to the Browns at home in the playoffs in 2020 when the Browns didn't have their head coach, that hurt. But Steelers also weren't playing very well at the end of that season. So,
no, they weren't. They started the season on fire. They didn't play well at the end of the season.
And the week after, when the Browns got their head coach back, they almost beat the Chiefs in that division round.
Yeah.
So I would still put Mike Tomlin.
Somebody named Baker Mayfield as quarterback.
Right. Yeah. I'm not arguing that Mike Tomlin is top 3. I don't know if he belongs in the top tier, but I think he should be in the top 10. I think 13 is way too low. That would be my takeaway from this. We're kind of moving backwards, but moving up the list here. Pete Carroll at number 5, I think, is an interesting one. He's always regarded as one of the top coaches, and I think he deserves to be, top 5, top 10. But number 4, Cliff Kingsbury of the Arizona Cardinals went in at number 4, and the write-up for why, the explanation was, outside of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, Kingsbury hasn't had any offensive talent in Arizona, was what the Pro Football Focus concluded. And even though defensively, Kingsbury is ranked very low. He's ranked 23 out of 26 of the eligible head coaches, but he's ranked 3rd on offense. And that was enough to get him 4th overall on this list.
I don't know if he's been as lacking in offensive talent as what Pro Football Focus is claiming.
James Conner.
I was just saying James Conner. Yeah.
12 touchdowns last year or whatever, how many he had. I don't think that and Christian Kirk got a huge contract. So, Jacksonville doesn't think that Arizona was void of all talent other than DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver. I think Christian Kirk is now overpaid, but he was
That's a whole other argument.
He was a pretty good wide receiver. I wouldn't say he's a throwaway replacement level wide receiver, and James Conner's not a replacement.
But Christian Kirk is a starting level wide receiver in the NFL. So you're underestimating the fact that Kingsbury had him. Kingsbury had James Conner, who contributed in both the running game and the passing game. So you had guys who were out there that, they did, when they lost DeAndre Hopkins, they had a rough spell, but, 2020, they had a rough spell at the end of the year. They can't get through an entire season after hot starts, and that's a problem. So, AJ Green. Let's not forget AJ Green too.
Sure. Yeah. A little. He's a little past his prime, but I wouldn't. Another
still a contributor.
contributor. Yes. It seems like they're acting like, they had, I don't know, no disrespect to the Falcons, but they're acting like they had the Falcons wide receiver core out there.
Right.
And they don't. They had some nice pieces other than DeAndre Hopkins, a really good running back who had like a career year last year. And to say that they were devoid of all talent other than Murray and Hopkins, I just think is I strongly disagree with that.
Yeah, so do I. And sometimes, and this again, that comes back to the problem I always have with Pro Football Focus is the way they evaluate players, the way they evaluate units. Sometimes I just wonder if they're watching the same game as I am, because it really makes me wonder sometimes who they're watching and why and where. So, yeah, Wallace, that's kind of what we're saying too.
Where would you rank Kingsbury on your list of coaches? Top 10, top 15, top 20? Just curious.
Wow. That's tough. Maybe top 10 because of what he has been able to do.
Okay.
With Kyler Murray, quarterback, with the talent he's had on offense. But again, that grade takes into account the fact that he has not been able to finish yet. We have not seen the Cardinals finish. And that's a big problem.
Absolutely, yeah.
They had a little blip there.
Yeah, you froze for a second.
So there's so much for my network. But the fact that he can't finish, to me, that also needs to go into your ranking of coaching of where someone ranks as a head coach, because he can't sustain the same success over the course of a season, and that's a problem.
Yeah, you're speaking our language, Wallace. We strongly disagree with those two rankings. I don't think I'd have Kingsbury in the top 10 if I did my own list.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it. I really would. Just off the top of my head, though, as I say, he's done well, but he hasn't overwhelmed me. And as I said, if you can't finish, then you can't be considered a good coach. You can't be considered a top coach. So that's about where I fall with him.
Wallace says top 20.
Top 20, okay.
For Cliff Kingsbury. So he's got him even lower than we do. I think he's probably around the 12 area for me if I was to rank the coaches. Pantera asks, part of the coaching grade has to do with the draft success, though, right? Not for this list.
Not for this list, no.
I mean, I would say for the most part that should be a factor. But for this list, it's really just looking at how they handle the players that they have, and then compare that to what they would do theoretically with an average roster. That's how this list was constructed.
That's what gets me. You got coaches like Sean McDermott, who's down at 16. And he's considered offensive rank 20 or 26 is how they would consider him. And this, you're talking about a guy who coached one of the most explosive offenses in the league last season. That's kind of what you're looking at when it comes to these evaluations. Mike McCarthy, I think, is overrated with the Dallas Cowboys. So you can go back and forth on these rankings, and I definitely would not. Matt LaFleur, they say, is at number 6 with an average roster, but we haven't seen him with an average roster. How would you know? Well, he's been running Aaron Rodgers for.
I think Pantera could say the same thing he said about talent galore teams with Mike Tomlin. I mean, Matt LaFleur has been blessed with talent galore and hasn't done anything in the playoffs.
He hasn't done anything with it, right?
So, I mean, and he's got the MVP of the last 2 seasons. So
yes, he does.
Yeah, I'm sure Matt LaFleur is part of why Aaron Rodgers won MVP the last 2 years. But I mean, Rodgers won MVP twice with Mike McCarthy. So
Right.
LaFleur looks a lot better than probably he would with any other quarterback in the league. And he doesn't seem to be hurt on this list like, say, Mike Tomlin by the fact that
exactly.
Tomlin coached a great, a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, but LaFleur's quarterback has kept his performance up. Not, kept his performance up. Ben Roethlisberger was not able to keep his ability to pass, his ability to throw downfield. We know Roethlisberger lost a lot of arm. Aaron Rodgers has not lost any of that arm yet, although he's getting older now, and we'll see.
I'm not arguing that. That's even more of a reason not to put LaFleur as high.
I agree. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I mean.
I was arguing that we haven't seen LaFleur without a super quarterback. Well, actually, no. That was what you were arguing. I was arguing that if both coaches had super quarterbacks, why is Mike Tomlin 13 but LaFleur is 6?
I agree.
And you can say the same thing that you said too, though, that the super quarterback Mike Tomlin had wasn't so super.
Wasn't so super the last couple of years. Yeah,
he still was 13, and LaFleur is 6. So, it's a very interesting list. It's fun to talk about. Lots of things that we can disagree on with the list. Let's dive into the running backs now. And the Arizona, I've got Arizona on my mind. I do want to talk about where the Cardinals running backs are, but start with the Falcons. They're 29 on the running back list. They are in the excuse me. I thought there were tiers for this list as well. There are not. So no, there are. Sorry. They're at the very bottom of the third tier, which is a very giant tier. That's why I couldn't find it. It's gets the job done, good starter or good depth. So this list, a little bit different than the coaches, where the coaches was looking at past performance. This was grading what the team has going into 2022. Of course, taking into account what those players did last year and in their careers, but really looking forward as opposed to backwards like the coaching list. And based on what, and not just looking at the starting running back, but the entire group.
Right, the entire
Falcons running group is ranked 29th among all running back groups in the league. So 4th from the bottom.
Yeah. Right now, it's hard to argue with that because Cordero Patterson cannot be your lead rusher. Cannot be your running back one. He's your gadget guy. He's the guy you go to kind of break up your offense and make some plays happen and get him outside and kind of take advantage of his size and strength, combination that he has. But I don't like leaning on Cordero Patterson. I think Arthur Smith did a little bit last year when Mike Davis had problems performing, is that he kind of leaned on Cordero as his as his running back. And, that's not really his best role.
I don't think he had a choice, Arthur Smith.
No, he didn't have a choice. But again, we also talked about the fact that the Falcons' offensive line was not getting a lot of push. So when you're making contact with the defensive line, maybe a yard past, the line of scrimmage, you're not going to show very well as a running game that way. You've got to get more push from your offensive line to be successful in your running game.
Yeah. And besides Patterson, I mean, Damian Williams is there, the veteran, and then the rookie Tyler Algier. And I don't think PFF is going to rank any, incoming rookie very highly.
No.
They want to see more from him, and that's completely fair. I think you want to see more from, unless he's like a hugely talented college player that absolutely going to translate to the next level. I think it's very fair to say that, wait and see on any rookie.
You have to wait and see on him.
That's what they're doing with the rookie running back for the Falcons.
Exactly.
So yeah, I agree that 29 is probably a good spot. Wallace says for right now that's realistic as well. So
I think it is. Right now it is. Damian Williams ran well for the Bears last year. Could not stay healthy. That's kind of why Matt Khalil was able to take over as the number 2 running back because Damian Williams couldn't stay on the field. So that's a problem that you're potentially looking at with the Falcons in 2022. Is this guy going to be reliable enough to take snaps in every game?
The 3 teams worse than the Falcons on PFF's list of worst running back groups: Kansas City Chiefs at 30, Los Angeles Rams at 31, Houston Texans at number 32. Houston Texans, probably no argument really here, them being last, but I thought the Chiefs and Rams being so low was interesting, particularly the Rams. And their running backs seem to be hurt by the fact that they had really top of the line run blocking, a great passing game, and I thought that Darrell Henderson ran well in the absence of Cam Akers, and then Cam Akers played pretty well in the postseason. I thought he played pretty well in the postseason, but PFF didn't like what Henderson and Akers were doing with all of the help that they've had. The defense is having to stop the Rams passing attack and the great running blocking that they were getting.
Yeah, I think PFF is underselling the Rams. As you say, Akers had came back really strong in the playoffs. It just takes time to come back from that kind of injury. So I don't think they're giving Cam Akers the credit for being the tough running back that he is and actually recovering and taking back over that spot as the Rams' prime running back. And then Darrell Henderson, you got is a strong backup. So I think that Pro Football Focus is not giving them enough credit. That they're kind of taking what we saw out of the Rams early in the season without looking at later in the season as their game got stronger, as their team got stronger. I don't like that. And and as a Super Bowl champion, are you really going to see that bad of a
running back group?
Yeah, that bad of a running back group. Sony Michel ran well for them last year. Now, I don't know where did he end up this year. Or is he still with the Rams?
I would have to double check that. I'm not sure.
So I think they're vastly underrating what the Rams have going into this season. Underrating how well they performed for the team last year and how well, they helped that team in the playoffs. You can't win without a running game in the playoffs, in my opinion. Maybe, again, I'm old, so I look at it that way.
Akers averaged 2.6 yards per carry in the postseason last year. So I thought he ran a little bit better than that, but obviously that's pretty low average, and I guess that's part of. Pro Football Focus has their own grading system. They don't look at stats like that, but
no, they don't.
That is an indication that, okay, maybe Pro Football Focus is what they're saying, that he performed poorly in the postseason. Maybe maybe he didn't perform as well as I remember. But yeah, I thought he just came out with big plays for them. And other than I think he had a couple fumbles in that Buccaneers matchup that kind of let Tampa Bay come back.
Let Tampa Bay back in the game, yeah. I had turned that game off. I thought Tampa Bay was just completely finished.
Yeah.
I thought the Rams had them just killed. And all of a sudden, I turned the game back on, and all of a sudden Tampa Bay is within striking distance of shutting the Rams down. Yeah, that probably has a lot to do with it. I still think the Rams, they're not giving the Rams enough credit. Chiefs, maybe. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, bad with turnovers and injuries. So, yeah, a lot of problems there. It's hard to rank a running back situation if you can't take their offensive line into consideration. So that has a lot to do with it. In some ways, some of this I can agree with. But Tennessee Titans, I mean, you got Derrick Henry in the rank 6. That's a little weird to me. So, again, I'm not.
Could be talking about the depth there, the whole running back group.
Could be. So yeah, I'm not reading. I think it's might be one of the toughest to judge on a team, especially because you got to look at the offensive line. How is the offensive line helping out? And with the Falcons in my own personal grades, in my own personal statistics, the Falcons offensive line ranked 26th last year. So, that has a lot to do with it. You're just not going to get that much out of them. Yeah. So, it's about all you can say. I don't know. Going back to the Titans, Deontay Foreman, I think, ran pretty well while Henry was out. So, they did have some depth on that roster. So it's tough to say.
A couple of teams I wanted to mention, the Titans are a good one that probably underranked at number 6. Arizona Cardinals, because we talked so much about Cliff Kingsbury, they're 23 on this list. So I just wanted to see if they were contradicting themselves, different writers of Pro Football Focus anyway, contradicting each other. One saying the Cardinals have no talent on offense other than Hopkins and Murray. And yeah, 23 isn't a great ranking, but not bottom of the barrel at running back there. So I found that ranking interesting. And I think the other ones that stand out to me is kind of the top of the list. I think they got the top 3 right, actually, with maybe you can change the order if you want, but you got Cleveland Browns at number 1. It's hard to argue with Chubb and Hunt, and Jonathan Taylor leading the league in rushing last year has got to be in the top 3. And the Packers with, they frustrate me because I have Aaron Jones on my fantasy team, and you want Aaron Jones to get more touches, but they don't need to give him more touches because A.J. Dillon is so good too. So they have a great 1-2 punch as well that their running back group belongs in the top 3.
I agree. Todd, maybe we will touch on that in a little bit. So good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Let's get to the wide receivers, and then we'll get to Todd's question to wrap up today's show, which brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app Prize Picks in your app store. Use that promo code ASU. And when you use that promo code, you get a 100% match on your first deposit of up to $100. So it's a great way to support us. And you get some free money to play some games, some fantasy games, not just football, but any sport.
Any sport.
On Prize Picks.
Although I've seen the last couple of weeks, they haven't had cricket on the list.
Really? They took cricket off?
it's well, there might not be any. They don't call them games; they call them test matches. It's just might not be a good time of year for test matches. So that could took cricket off the board. So, a lot of other, you got about another 15 categories on Prize Picks that you can go into and look at and make your picks out of. So check it out. Go on their site and see. There's some fun prop bets to be had on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So check out Prize Picks, use that promo code ASU. Looking at the wide receivers the wide receiver group rankings on Pro Football Focus, Falcons towards the bottom of the list again. And, it's really disappointing to see how far the Falcons wide receivers have fallen. Because if you're looking at this list like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they're top 5, top 3 in the discussion as the best in the league. And they're now 27th. And it's hard to argue they shouldn't be 27th. They're the number 1 team in tier 4 on the list, which is called likely weakness.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what their draft choices does. I mean, does Drake London pan out as the receiver that they expect him to be? Does he pan out as the taller physical type receiver? So it's going to be interesting. Does he come through? That's going to judge quite a bit about how we grade this draft going forward. Is having the height in your receiver group going to help improve this team? Is it going to be a positive for this team? And, that's something we're going to be looking at very closely, especially as we start going through training camp and our preseason games and taking a look at how Drake London gets off the line of scrimmage and how he makes his moves. What kind of moves does he have? Does he know, what can he run? What routes can he run? What routes can't he run? So it's going to be interesting to see.
So I think. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No. I think that's going to have a lot to do with how their final ranking is for 2022.
So I was just, looking more into the qualifications for what they used to construct this list, and it says receiver core rankings, but I think what they mean by receiver core is all pass catchers because. They're talking about, Kyle Pitts and other tight ends. They mention other tight ends on the list for consideration with these rankings. So the Falcons might be a little bit lower even if they're only looking at wide receivers.
Yeah, I think so. Pitts plays a part in the fact that they're not at the bottom of the.
Yeah, not at the very, very bottom.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so the teams below the Falcons on this list, Jacksonville Jaguar, as we mentioned, they're hoping Christian Kirk is their big solution at wide receiver. Baltimore Ravens, they talk about how Mark Andrews is really the only great or good pass catcher that they have. Houston Texans, Green Bay Packers, which, without Devontae Adams, they are they've
dropped.
That is a weakness.
Yes.
And they've dropped. And 32, Tom, your Chicago Bears.
I know. Oh, you had to bring that up, didn't you?
Well, I'm just naming.
You had to go there.
I would have named it if it was any team, but it was the Chicago Bears.
Yeah. And for 2022, it's going to be a rough one because Darnell Mooney is the only one that they have that's a reliable wide receiver. So they do have some free agent acquisitions. They did do a couple guys in the draft. But, again, the Bears were in the same situation as the Falcons going into this offseason. Not new general managers, but general managers who were trying to clear a lot of cap space from previous regimes. And building a team that could be competitive in 2022, but building a team building a team that had the building blocks, kind of had the foundation that you can build on in 2023. So that's what both teams have been going for. That's, kind of similar to the way the Bears have approached their offseason. But yeah, they don't have a lot of proven talent. It's going to be rough. And we'll see how it develops as the year goes on. As Matt Eberflus gets his, as he makes his decisions on offense, how they want to run the offense and going forward.
The one big difference, though, you got who you hope is your franchise quarterback on that rookie deal.
You do.
Like to see, him develop, and it's hard for that guy to develop without some pass catchers. I mean, at least in the Falcons situation, they're not kind of I hate to say this, that I don't want to imply the Bears are wasting Fields' beginning of his career, but you don't have a young quarterback in Atlanta where you're trying to develop him. You're actually putting the pieces
without the quarterback
backwards. They're doing it the other way, where they're
essentially the Falcons are putting the pieces in place and hoping to have those pieces together when they bring in their quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. And, Dave, there's a lot of Chicago Bears fans who think the same way, who are really on Ryan Poles for not bringing in some better receivers and giving Justin Fields a better opportunity to show what he can do in 2022. We'll see. That might be it. There's only so much you can do when you're so far over the cap, when you're trying to clear so much cap space, when you're trying to clear so much cap space from players who really aren't contributing. And that's the problem the Bears ran into. They picked up Luke Gelsey is going to be their offensive coordinator. He's been the passing game coordinator for the Packers for the last couple of years. So this is a guy who knows what a passing game looks like. It's going to be interesting to see how he teams up with Justin Fields to make that next step in his development this year. But yeah, the receiver group does leave a lot to be desired. Not much I could say.
At the top of Pro Football Focus's list, there's 6 teams in their elite tier. And you got Cincinnati at the very top with Tampa Bay, Miami, Philadelphia, Las Vegas, and San Francisco rounding out the top 6. And obviously, I think San Francisco remaining in that top tier will depend completely, not even largely, completely on whether or not they keep Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see where Samuel goes and how this situation with Samuel is resolved. We just don't know. So, and I think it's going to have a lot to do, is Garoppolo actually coming back or not? Because it seems to be like the answer is no. He might not be coming back to that, coming back to the 49ers and why can't I think of his name? I just blanked on the 49ers backup quarterback.
Oh, Trey Lance?
Yeah, Trey Lance. There you go. I had the first name. I couldn't get the last name. Wait, Dave, it's coming for you. One of these days, you're going to be searching for that word too. It happens to us all. So, yeah, Wallace, I think they're going to try to re-sign Deebo. Deebo doesn't want to do the running now. So how do you evaluate that extension, the extension he should get if he's not going to play the part in the running game that he played the last couple of years? That's where the 49ers have a difficulty.
Yeah, it's a tough negotiation. And after a season where all his answers were, yeah, I like doing the running, I like getting the ball, I like being a football player, complete 180 this offseason.
Yes.
And that he just wants to be a wide receiver. So
right.
his value does drop, and how does the San Francisco offense look without using Deebo Samuel as a running back at all?
Yep. Yep. We're going to have a lot. That's going to be an interesting team to watch this year.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it.
Let's get to Todd's question real quick before we wrap up the show. He asked us for our take on if Baker Mayfield is a better option than what we have now. I believe he meaning the Falcons.
He's meaning the Falcons, yeah. He's better. He would be the best option for the Falcons to get. If they could, sign him. The problem is, I still don't think, while they've improved their cap situation, I still don't think the Falcons have the cap room to bring him in. So, see, I'm a Baker Mayfield fan. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't. And to me, yeah, your quarterback has to have a little arrogance to him. He's got to be the leader. He's got to be the unqualified leader on your offense. And I've seen Baker Mayfield have some outstanding games. The game he and Lamar Jackson had, the Browns against the Ravens.
Yeah.
They were both trying to outdo each other. That became a quarterback competition, and Mayfield looked as good as Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
So the talent is there. Is it the coaching? Is it the fact that, I don't know, maybe there's too much arrogance because they're saying, trying to teach him a lesson?
I think there's too much arrogance.
Too much arrogance, yeah.
I like him. I agree with you. I think he would be the best option if he was on the Falcons roster today. He would be an upgrade if the Falcons could fit him on the roster for next season. But I do think he plays with too much arrogance right now.
Just everything he can do with the football. I still think he's a good quarterback.
I do too. I do too.
It's going to be rough because he's not going to be in Cleveland.
No.
That's all there is to it.
No,
but no, I still would have liked the scene, Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Haslam on the dance floor, and Mayfield takes him by the face and goes, "Jimmy, you broke my heart." That kind of, but no, it's just not going to happen. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because, as I say, yeah, Mayfield had a rough season last year, but you put a brace on someone to hold his shoulder and left arm in place. You're not going to play as well at quarterback. You're not going to do your job at your desk during the week as well if you have that kind of brace on your left arm, holding your left shoulder in place, holding the joint in place. Yeah, you're going to have a rough time. Yeah. Baker Mayfield had a rough season because he's wearing that damn brace because he was trying to play, because he was trying to be there for his team. Yeah. He could have sat. Nobody would have blamed him for sitting. He tried to be out there. That's what gets me. Is he tried to do what everybody says they want out of their quarterback. He tried to go out there and lead, even though he was hurt. And it cost him big.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I think that is absolutely right. That he tried to play hurt. He tried to do what he could to help his team win, and now he's being criticized for that this offseason. And the Browns have moved on from him because of that play.
Well, we'll see if the Browns have moved on or not.
Well, I mean, it's too late. As you said, he's not playing for the Browns ever again.
Oh, no. The Browns have moved on from Baker. It's a question about whether the Browns actually have another quarterback still.
Right, yeah. But Mayfield, they have moved on from Mayfield.
And for anybody just at the end of the program, if you haven't read Jenny Vrentis's piece in the New York Times, please do so. Because she got so much information. You're looking at it and you're saying, why couldn't you're saying these NFL teams really didn't try to get any information on Deshaun Watson, because apparently Jenny Varentis was able to find it. So it's going to be interesting to see that situation play out as this offseason goes on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for all the comments that are coming in late.
Yep.
Wallace making the point that he doesn't think Mayfield fits Arthur Smith's system. Todd, I like the interaction between the listeners in the chat room. Todd responded to Wallace saying it's just about wins. He gives us the best chance to win. Pantera has an interesting point that he thinks 49ers and Browns will hold on to their quarterbacks until the trade deadline, try and maximize trade value there. That could be maybe what they're going to try to do. I don't know. It's not like we've never seen quarterbacks traded at the deadline, but it's hard to – it's not like baseball where you're just plugged in into the outfield and you can just hit the same way that you were hitting on the other team. I mean, when you're a quarterback, you're running a different offense. You're playing with different players. Right. You got to have chemistry and precision with your receivers. That's hard to do on the fly after the trade deadline.
Yes.
Maybe Garoppolo's been traded at the deadline, but not to a team that was trying to go for a Super Bowl.
Right.
To a team that looked at Garoppolo as their future. So we'll see if maybe, Garoppolo could go to a team, or Mayfield could go to a team that has a hurt quarterback or in contention that thinks they're a quarterback away. Pantera seems to think that's a possibility.
Anything is a possibility. Todd finishes us off really nice. So, yeah. Not much I can say to that, Todd. You never know.
Well, right after you said, anything's a possibility.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, yep. We'll see.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Saturday. That'll be my last show before my vacation. So I'll be off the next couple of weeks after that. But we'll both be here next Saturday at noon Eastern time.
Yep. Have a great week, everyone.